Folks, the United States Senate passed a multi-billion-dollar hurricane relief package to assist the folks, of course, in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'll get to that story first, but our top story, overnight, 2 students on the campus of Grambling State University were shot and killed after a dispute there. It was, of course, a stunning story coming out of Grambling. Details are very sketchy, but apparently 2 of these students were arguing on the campus overnight in the courtyard there. Shots were fired. Now police are investigating a double homicide on the campus of Grambling State University. We're hoping to get Will Sutton, the university's spokesman, on the phone to talk about this. But again, the breaking news, 2 young men from Grambling State University who were arguing one another, shot and killed at Grambling State University overnight. So certainly a sad situation there. And so we'll have those more of those details later in the show. Let's go to our second top story, and that is what took place, folks, in the United States Senate. Of course, we've seen massive damage to Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, due to hurricanes there. Now, of course, we now have the Senate. They passed a $36.5 billion hurricane package that will give Puerto Rico an infusion of desperately needed cash. Of course, they still are impacted there. They're also going to replenish the federal emergency management agency's shrinking emergency disaster accounts. And the bill will also keep the federal flood insurance program from running out of money to pay claims. And the relief package headed for the president's desk is in addition to money from FEMA meant to help Puerto Rico, of course, restore water services. Currently, less than 20% of people have electricity. About 70% of the folks there don't have access to running water. Business on the island, which is all dependent on tourism, is also at a standstill. Ryan Leon, who was hoping to finish 8th grade in Puerto Rico before Hurricane Maria hit, wrote a letter to 61 lawmakers and the Trump administration pleading for financial help for schools in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Again, about 10% of Puerto Rico's schools opened yesterday, even without electricity. So many of you also may have seen the photo that went around where surgeons were performing surgery on folks with flashlights. Hundreds of children have moved to Florida and other cities on the U.S. mainland. It is tough on kids like Ryan.
Just think about 1 month without your income. That puts you like 6 months behind in your personal economy.
All right, folks, joining us right now from D.C., our panel there, of course, we have Karen Maria Alston, founder and CEO of the Spectrum Circle, Ray Baker, a host of Public Agenda podcast, and Greg Carr, chair, the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Greg, I'll start with you. When you look at this $36.5 billion, you still have the island of St. John, of course, in U.S. Virgin Islands, virtually without power since September 6th. And then, of course, Trump gives himself a grade of a 10. It is embarrassing that you have folks in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands who are being treated with disrespect as if they're not even a part of the United States. Congress finally acted, but there's no way in the world, I don't care what anyone says, that the United States Senate and Donald Trump would have done this to Alabama, to Texas, to Florida, to Mississippi. They are late when it comes to helping the people in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, they're late, and they're not even unanimous. I mean, you know, the CBC is trying to organize a junket now to draw attention to travel down to the Virgin Islands, of course. And even now, the representative from the Virgin Islands says that what's being proposed is not enough. But yesterday, in the among the 17 Republicans who voted no on this aid bill, were 2 who are being praised today for criticizing Trump, namely the Senator Corker from Tennessee and Jeff Flake from Arizona. These people are still trying to short nickel and dime these people who are black and brown folks. I mean, you look at Rand Paul yesterday, Roland. Rand Paul voted against it because he said, oh, we can't keep giving these handouts. You know, yeah, we know the child in chief. We know what he's going to do. But these Republicans need to really seriously look in the mirror and examine their humanity in this instance.
Ray?
Now let's unpack a little bit of what Dr. Carr said. He talked about specifically the black and brown folks that are there. We know that the U.S. Virgin Islands is made up of 76% black people, right? And so when we see the comparison of what happened in Florida, what happened in Texas, is very uniquely different. Also, the Congressional Black Caucus is trying to push for a bipartisan congressional delegation to go to the Virgin Islands. Speaker Ryan's office says it's working, it's in progress. It's in progress. There are human beings that are suffering without power, without electricity, without medical needs, and the Speaker's office says we're working on it and it's in progress. That's awfully disingenuous, and it happens time and time again in the United States that these unfortunate occurrences happen to black and brown folks.
All right, go right ahead.
These are American citizens, and that's what we keep forgetting, is that these are American citizens, and they deserve the same rights as every other American citizen. And we should be talking about this every single day and spotlighting how these citizens are not being treated equitably as citizens in Alabama or Mississippi or Texas that have been affected by hurricanes.
And again, you're talking about finally $36.5 billion. The initial money to Puerto Rico was a loan. And when you see the constant disrespect for the President of the United States, how he's blowing them off, of course Republicans in Congress are going to follow suit because he makes it clear they're not that important.
That's exactly right. And then, of course, never forget that you can always make a little hustle. What does Naomi Klein call it? A disaster capitalism. Here you have a two-person company out of Montana, the same hometown, Whitefish, Montana, as the Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zinke, get a $300 million contract to go down there and nickel and dime patchwork the Puerto Rican grid. You made this point when the thing first went down, the second of the two hurricanes, Roland, on this show. Listen, it's time to rebuild that network from the ground up and put an infrastructure in place to allow these people to do what they want to do, which is namely get back up on their feet and help themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and
how about this? How about this? When you have a company, a two-employee company from the town Secretary of the Interior, who gets a $300 million contract, no track record whatsoever. Really?
Roland,
that's called a hookup.
It is. And Roland, to your point and to what Dr. Carr is articulating, right? All these fiscal conservatives who are always concerned about let's save the taxpayer dollar aren't saying anything about this, when if they would have gotten mutual aid investment from another state in order to provide the electric grid for Puerto Rico, we would find that'd be significantly cheaper than the contract that Mr. Zinke's home state is getting right now. So we're hearing a lot of silence from those folks, those same folks who at every turn with President Obama, at every turn with local politics, talk about save the government money, let's save, let's be fiscal conservatives. They're throwing that out the window right here for crony capitalism.
Karen, are we seeing an inside job here, a two-employee company getting a $300 million contract, and they happen to be from the hometown of the Secretary of Interior?
We are 100% seeing an inside job. But I want to raise a different point, because there's a lot of money that's about to be spent due to these hurricanes. And we have talented minority businesses that can perform on these contracts, that are ready to go, ready to perform, know the communities that are based there or able to get there easily. We should be having a conversation about the plethora of businesses that are getting opportunities and subcontracts. And so if we're going to do this crony capitalism, let's also talk about, well, where are the minority businesses that are standing right behind these companies ready to come in as subs?
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.